This is like as generally I've had a cup of coffee by now, but this is the first one of
That's
the
the
day.
first one of the day. There we go.
It's good.
Same? You going same coffee?
I just we have a bunch of different kinds. So we do the Nespresso. This is one of my favorites, which is the chocolate. But we have vanilla, caramel, different like a few of the ones that we have that are really good. They're like more basic ones, is like Congo and Cuba. Like they're more like just blends.
Yeah.
As well. So we kind of I just mix it up. I'll have like one that's a flavored, one that's not. Maybe that's kind of
Hmm.
the go to.
Nice,
You're
man.
still dealing with the
Pete's.
Pete's.
Yeah, Pete's coffee.
That's a good
Medium
one.
roast Pete's does the job. I Dude, I think I was telling you before, like I was somebody who always like used to put at least something in my coffee, like even like a little like a little bit of a stevia, like just a
Yeah,
little something. Um, but now I'm so used to just enjoying and tasting the coffee that I don't put anything in there. And it's just like, it's been great. Like it took me a while to get over it. I'm like, oh, I don't like this at all. But I think now that my taste buds are adjusted to it, I can actually taste the coffee versus before I was just looking forward to something sweet, like a treat, like something that you're like, oh, this is kind of like, it's hot dessert in a cup, basically. That's
yeah,
basically what I was doing. Even if it was like little to no calories, I was doing it all wrong before. And I remember like coffee snobs telling me like, oh, you put stuff in your coffee. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
so like, and I still will, like on a very rare occasion. Um, or I almost feel like it's like treating myself. But now I'm just like, just straight, man. It's good.
yeah. Like I remember when I saw the research on coffee, and we've gone through it. We don't need to dive too much into it. One of the podcasts was on it, but when I saw the research on like how beneficial coffee can be in like controlled quantities, I was like, oh. But at the time, I was putting a lot of sugar in there and like creamer and stuff. Kind of initially when I was getting into coffee, and I was like, oh, it's probably not really giving the benefits. So I just kind of forced myself. It's kind of like when you drink beer, right? Like the first beers that make you
Yeah,
never
yeah,
like
yeah,
rarely does anybody like beer right away. It's like you
yeah.
drink it, you're like,
Uh,
it
people
gives you
like this shit.
something like that, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
that was really good,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
copyright.
it's good, bro. I like this one. Like, oh man, especially the IPAs too, bro. It's like drinking oil. Like, oh, fucking gross, man. But people love it, so I'm not
Old
judging.
acquired
I'm just
taste,
it's acquired.
acquired taste. Well, that's what like when it comes to alcohol too. That's a huge thing that we haven't actually talked about on the
Hmm.
podcast. What is your view on alcohol, just in general, and also what's your view on alcohol when it comes to like health and fitness goals?
Yeah, my view on it, like in general, I just man, I don't drink, dude. Like I went through huge phases of doing it, especially through college and when you're with the boys and you're into parties and all that stuff. But I remember doing it like back in the day to try to fit in a lot,
Mm.
like I used to use it to like fit in with a certain crowd and feel like I was cool and I was part of them and I could be the most hammered one. And, I could be like the dude that would, you know, take his shirt off and do a bunch of push-ups and be super drunk and like, just kind of be the life of the party. And so I like soaked that up, and so I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I didn't actually like alcohol. I liked what alcohol brought, which was like this different person that I feel like I could tap into that, wasn't necessarily me when I'm sober, right? And it was like it was hard to tap into that person naturally, and so I like used it as like this coping mechanism. It was almost like this alter ego that I could take it, and I was like, oh, I just turn into this other dude, super confident, and like, I'm sure people feel that way too, but that's what I used it for. And then finally, I just had an awakening of like, I don't like feeling like shit. Like there's this high, right? Like there's this like super high. Everybody thinks you're the life of the party. Everybody loves you. You're awesome. Everybody thinks you're funny, and that stuff's cool. But then the other stuff started kind of tipping the scale for me. It was like, man, I feel like shit. Like, what am I doing to my body? Like, I'm getting away with this because I'm young. I'm tired of throwing up. Like, I didn't like throwing. Like, what am I doing to myself? And it took me days and days to recover. I'd go like I'd hit the gym after and I would just feel like shit. I'd feel it coming out of my pores and I could just smell it. And I was just like, dude, this cannot be good, you know? And so eventually, like, you get to a point where that starts to outweigh the super cool, awesome benefits that I was experiencing from it. And I knew it was just like instant gratification. And anytime like I'm in those positions where it's like, it's a quick, like, fun, cool little high, I'm like, okay, this roller coaster is going to end at some point. And if I can be proactive in the process, then I want to do that. And it's not that I don't drink, I drink zero at all. Like, we'll go wine tasting, we'll do stuff like that. And I'll do some samples or I'll do a flight or something like that. But alcohol is just not part of my regimen. It's just not part of something that I do. And that's just strictly by choice. It's no judgment against other people, but I just, to choose, I look at it as just those old things that will come up in my head too. And I don't want to go back to that, but I also don't have to drink and like get hammered, you know, like I was like either 0 or 100%. And so, I just, every once in a while, like if we have some wine or something, it's cool. But like, I just don't really desire it like that, you know, and that's just me personally. Now, if people are doing it, as far as my perspective, trying to improve their health and their fitness, I draw a little bit harder line on this one. If people enjoy it, great, go for it. But the second you feel like your expectations aren't met on the health side of things and you feel like you've been putting the work in and you're still doing that, then there's obvious change to be made there. And so I'll be very blatant with people. Like, it's cool if you can keep it in your regimen and you can continue to get results that you're satisfied with and you're happy, great, keep it. I'm not telling you to get rid of it. However, if you feel like you've been putting in the work and you're not meeting your own expectations, and we can look at the data and we can truly solidify, like, yeah, you have been doing the things, you should have better results than this, but you're continuously drinking alcohol, and you're still refusing to change and you still want to keep that, then it becomes a problem, right? Because now it's this thing that's holding you back. But I tell people, like, if don't let it, be a problem until if it actually becomes a problem and it slows you down, then let's make change. If you can include it in your life and it makes you happy and it's part of your social thing and your social gatherings are super important to you and you can still track in the right direction and be happy with what you're achieving, keep it. Like, I'm not telling you to get rid of it. But if you're asking me personally as Matt, I'm like, dude, you're not going to benefit from putting poison in your body, right? And so that's the way I look at it. Again, that's just my perspective, but I'll never tell anybody like, hey, stop it, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. Everybody makes their own choices. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it, man. How do you feel?
Yeah. No, I mean, my views have been all roller coaster on this, for sure. Because you know that I used to have a problem with alcohol. It was something that I more or less, like, I think it's easy to get into that mode of like, oh, I need it to be social. I need it to be the life of the party. I needed to talk to women. I needed to do X, Y, Z. Like, that's the version of myself that I like, right? It's like, yeah, it's the outgoing version. And then I ended up quitting alcohol for over 3 years, right? Which over the course of that time, it was great. You know, it was great to prove to myself I could do it. It was one of the hardest things right away to do, but then I proved to myself I could do it. And the next step for me was like, I want to be able to like incorporate this again and just like do it in a different way, and not have it be like something that I can't control. Right. And so now I've been for the last, since June, I think it was, been just like in moderation drinking with like Marissa and I'll just have a few glasses of wine throughout the week. Some nights, and it's good. Like I literally, all I really drink, honestly, is wine and White Claws. Like that's all. I just through the line. I had never really got drunk until our Halloween party that we have. It was like the first time that I had this and that and the other thing. And I was like, I'm just going to let myself, go. And I was hungover till 5:30 p.m. the next day. And I was like, not again. Like, this is not happening again. Like, I'm going to go ahead and just like wine. Like we drink wine from overseas because it's like got less sulfites and like it feels I never wake up feeling different at all. It's just like, you just have a few glasses. It's watch a movie or a show and chat, and that's just a part of our week, and that's kind of like my views have changed. But also I agree with you on the health and fitness side of things. Like, people, if you have like a firm goal that you're going after, like truly alcohol isn't going to help that.
No.
Really. It's like, it's not going to help you lose more weight. It's one of those things that, I should say that differently, because like it could, like it maybe if it relaxes, like if having a few glasses of wine throughout the week or whatever it is, having a few glasses of wine on Friday with your friends, like maybe that could actually impact in a positive way if it's controlled, right? If you're able to control, because certain things, like depending on what you drink too, right? It's like if you are somebody who's drinking all these like really high sugar drinks, high calorie drinks, that's also a different story than if you're somebody who maybe likes to have a glass of whiskey, or like to have a glass of wine, or likes to have like a seltzer or something like that. Like these things are not created the same, because like these certain drinks could have 1,000 calories in it, and this other one could have 200. Where it's like, okay, is 200 calories like a few times throughout the week, or is like, let's say 500 calories a few times throughout the week going to be the end of the world if you know how to include it in? No, not at all. But is like having a night where you get hammered and drink 3,000 calories, and then generally, like what I found is like when you get to a certain point, sometimes like those inhibitions go away. Maybe you gravitate, all of a sudden your hand's in a bag of chips, and you start going down those rabbit holes. Then you generally wake up the next day, and if you were going after this goal, you're like, oh shit, like I don't feel good, like you're bloated, you just like it doesn't lead to a lot of good things. So I would say, like, my opinion is that, like, if controlled, it could potentially be beneficial to somebody. I don't think science would say that, but I'm just
It
trying.
depends on the person, right? Like it totally depends. Yeah, like I'm with you, dude. Like that's why I'll never tell anybody just to blatantly not drink alcohol who's trying to better themselves and their health until I see it affecting them, right? Because there is people that, like, to your point, where it could be beneficial in terms of like they enjoy the social aspect, and the people that they're hanging out with are actually beneficial for them, and it like enhances their life, and it's a good group of people. And drinking some wine or having some drinks is something that they just happen to do when they get together every now and then. Like it all comes down to the intentionality and the control that you have. So if somebody is like zero control, zero intentionality in their process, that's way different than somebody who abuses it or uses to cope with it. And they're still trying to improve their health. And then all of a sudden, like now it becomes this problem, right? Like, so I'm with you on that one, man. I think it just comes down to the level. Everybody's different, right? It'd be the same thing as like, I remember playing with some really like gifted athletes, dude. And like, there were some guys that the guys were all over them for the draft. Right. And they'd come and they were very strict on like, I'm not taking any more than 20 to 30 swings in the cage. Right. Like, and I just need a handful to get my shit dialed and I'm good. It's like, okay, are you going to tell that same person who's potentially going to go in these top 5 rounds to be like, no, you need to swing more? It's like, nah, if he feels good at wherever he's at right now and he's hitting over, close to 400 and he's leading the state in jacks, like, okay, yeah, you're going to let him be, right? Like, let him do his own thing. And I think it's the same thing with alcohol. If people can control it and they're intentional with it, it's like, who am I to say like, hey, stop doing that thing that you actually, that's part of your life that you enjoy. And by the way, you're still crushing it. Your results are phenomenal. Like we're actually superseding or exceeding our expectations. And that happens. It's few and far between, but that's why I say there's no one size fits all, because you do have those rare cases, those kind of anomalies, the exceptions to the rule where they will just dominate and they can still actually keep doing the thing. And it usually comes down to they just have more intentionality. They have more control around it. They don't let it control them. They control it. And so when you can do that and it doesn't bother you, then yeah, you can be an exception to, the majority of people. But I would say most people don't have that kind of skill, right? Or that kind of control. The people that I see are usually, they're using it to cope. They're using it to brush over things like what I used to use it for. Right. And like, it sounds like you were in the similar, like you mentioned, like being able to talk to girls. It was way easier when you had some liquid courage in you, bro. Like,
Yeah, it was like crazy, like difference. It's like, and as a guy, right, who's trying to find, like, naturally, like that's like we're trying to find that woman, right? Mm-hmm. We'll get into this probably on the next episode that you watch, really, on relationships and stuff. We're actually going to talk about this. today when we record. But like, if that's our natural, like what we want, like it's like, oh wow, alcohol, oh, that made it easier, like to do this. Like naturally, I want to feel more like that. I want to
Right.
like, it's like, it's crazy what we'll do. But I wanted to like kind of end this. I wanted to just I pulled up a little bit of research on this just to give you like some of the biggest things that it says when it the impacts on alcohol consumption on weight loss. Right. So this is some of the studies, like recent studies. Obviously, high calorie content. So it contains 7 calories per gram. So it's higher calories. But this is the big thing, and I remember this from our certifications that we took. Is alcohol? The body metabolizes alcohol differently than other nutrients. So it's like it views it as a toxin or a poison. So it's going to like metabolize. It's going to put everything else on hold to get it out of the body, right? So it's like it's putting the other food that it needs to digest and metabolize on hold until alcohol is out of the body. And so it just like delays that process. Increased appetite can happen. We've just talked about some of these things. More poor food choices happen. You're going to generally gravitate towards like saltier foods, like high fat foods, maybe sweets, different things. The inhibitions kind of go out the window. So like if your goal is to lose weight, like it's going to be easy to convince yourself to have like 7 cookies, right? As opposed to maybe like maybe that's normally something like in a sober state that you wouldn't even think to do. And then it says this. So this says influence of weight loss medications. This is interesting. So it says reduced alcohol consumption. Studies have found that individuals taking weight loss medications such as semaglutide, like Ozempic, Wegovy, report a decrease in alcohol intake. Craving reduction. These medications may reduce craving for alcohol, potentially aiding in body weight loss and decrease alcohol consumption. Interesting. I guess that makes sense because it's like an appetite suppression, but
It suppresses everything.
So maybe I guess that's interesting. Maybe that'd be something we could look into, but I never knew that. It says behavioral patterns is the last one. Drunkorexia. I never heard of that before either. Some individuals engage in restricting food intake to offset calories consumed from alcohol, behavior known as drunkorexia, which poses significant health risks. So I've definitely known what that is talking about, but I didn't know the name of it until today. But it is a thing, right? Like if you're trying to lose weight, it's like you have an allotment of calories. If you're trying to like conclude alcohol in that allotment of calories, like it's first off, there's no nutrients in alcohol. So you're potentially like, you're limiting your body like of essential nutrients that it needs from food. But also like if that is a pretty substantial amount of calories, like sure, you're still in your calorie allotment that you have, but now like it's coming from empty calories. A lot of that's coming from empty calories. So you're going to be probably hungrier. You're going to be deficient in certain things potentially. So it really does make a lot of sense.
Yep. I love that, man. Very cool. And so hopefully this was able to shed some light on your personal journey, Alex's and my journey. We've dove into this in other podcasts prior to with a little bit further detail, but it's cool to scratch the surface again and share our stories of how we potentially, at some points in our life, both used it to gain confidence, maybe used it for maybe the wrong reasons. And we also, covered maybe some and shined a light on how you may be using it in your process and how you can be successful with it and how it can inhibit you and hold you back. So if you have a family member, a friend, or yourself, right, and somebody that you feel like you could share this with and they could benefit from it, awesome. Send it over to them. If you guys have any questions, always put those in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. And we may just choose those topics as well, especially if it's stuff that you guys want to hear us talk about or shed some insight on, or even just do research on in general. Shoot it our way. We're open to, go over and discuss some topics. So hopefully this is able to help you guys and make your decision based on what your goals are, how you're doing in your health, etc., and see if you can still include it in your life. If you can, great. If not, maybe there's some opportunity and adjustments to be made. And until then, we will see you guys on the next one.